Someone was walking around the apartment, and I could clearly hear the footsteps right outside the door, shuffling and heavy, as if whoever was there was clawing at the floor with his feet. We were sitting in total darkness, and I could feel my hands and whole body beginning to tremble. I felt as if I was clamped in an invisible, huge vice. I was afraid to move even a fingertip, afraid to even breathe, so that the creature roaming the rooms didn't know where we were hiding. We huddled in the farthest corner, next to the bathtub, and stared into the darkness, listening to the blood-curdling sounds behind the door. All we had to do was wait for the locksmith to come and open the door. That's what I wanted most of all, to leave the apartment once and for all, and never come back here again. But the much-desired rattle of the door lock still hadn't reached us. We were sitting still for about 20 to 30 minutes, when suddenly I noticed that there was silence in the apartment. The steps had disappeared somewhere. Only sometimes we heard thunder and the sound of light rain on the metal windowsill. "Is he gone?" Mike whispered softly. I just shrugged my shoulders, still afraid to move. "Who was that?" I hissed, also barely audible. "The one in the mirror behind you." The ringing of the cell phone, like a knife, cut the long-awaited silence, scaring me and Mike half to death. I frantically pulled out the phone and tried to put it on silent mode, but it was too late. Again, I heard footsteps behind the door, only not slow, not shuffling, and rapidly approaching the door to the bathroom. Suddenly, he stopped right in front of the door. The occasional flash of lightning illuminated the apartment a little, and through the gap between the floor and the door, I could clearly see someone's feet. The unbearable horror was about to turn into panic. I held back as much as I could. Again, the cold sweat ran down my body. My hand shook even harder, and I dropped the phone on the floor, giving us away. Mikey, sitting behind me, slapped my shoulder with his hand in an attempt to bring me to my senses, but I had no control over myself. I couldn't take my eyes off the doorframe. Something was standing there. I could feel it. Suddenly there was a sound, as if someone was leaning against the door with his hands. Apparently, an uninvited guest trying to listen to what was happening behind the door. But suddenly, I heard a chilling voice at the door, mumbling some unintelligible and incoherent words, as if in some unknown language. The mumbling gradually faded away, giving way to more or less comprehensible speech.
"God is gone. He can't see you. He won't help you. Nobody will help you. Nobody will help you. Nobody will help you."
The horrible shriek went straight to my brain, making me want to pass out as quickly as possible to avoid hearing it. But alas, that didn't happen. The phrase was repeated 100 more times, and at the same time, he was scratching the door, either with his claws or with some sharp metal object. But soon there were knocks, light knocks on the door, which in the silence of night became incredibly loud. Each knock pulled the worst thoughts from the farthest recesses of my mind, drawing eerie pictures before my eyes. I imagined him opening the door, coming in here, grabbing and tormenting us, pouring blood all over the walls and the floor. It created an unbelievable fear that was impossible to overcome. Soon, the light knocking turned into banging, and it seemed as if it was about to kick the damn door down. 2 pieces of plywood and a partition between them. It didn't take much work to break it and get inside. The blows continued in unison, with the same phrases about God and that no one would help us. I squirmed even harder in the empty hope that it would help me somehow. Mike froze like a statue, and only by shining a little light on the phone, I could see his eyes frozen in unrestrained terror. The phone rang again, and for this time, it was the locksmith, so I've decided to answer.
Hello? Do you hear me?
An uncertain voice came over the speaker. Yes, I can hear you, I whispered. Hurry up to the 4th floor, apartment number 65, and break down the door. Do you hear me?
Are you in trouble?
He asked anxiously. Hurry up and break down the door. You can cut the lock.
Alright, I got you. I'm on my way up.
As I was sitting in the bathroom, I heard the sound of the front door slamming from the outside, and quick footsteps sounded in the stairwell. Soon, I heard the rattling of the keyhole, so the knocking on our door stopped, and the footsteps slowly began to recede. The locksmith decided to use the lockpick, judging by the sounds, and when it didn't work, his crowbar came in handy. The door to the apartment swung open in a few minutes, scattering splinters from the doorframe on the stairwell. A light came on in the bathroom, and a voice was heard coming from the hallway.
Is anyone in here?
I helped my friend get to his feet and left the bathroom with my eyes closed.
Good night.
A polite locksmith greeted us. I silently put on my jacket, took a bill of $100 from my pocket, and handed it to the master. We quickly left the apartment. Mike followed me, just slightly closing the door.
Hey guys, don't you lock the apartment?
We didn't answer anything. We just went down the stairs like robots, still processing what had happened.
Maybe you need a lock? I can do it right now. And you gave me too much money. Can I transfer the change to your card?
I don't need anything. Thank you very much, Mike mumbled and continued down the stairs after me. Until the morning, we sat at a 24-hour kebab stand in the center of town. It was the only place where it was very bright, even at night, and people were coming here all the time. We didn't even think about going to my place. Our brains weren't working at all. We just looked at each other, swallowing our saliva and asking the only question, what was that? It was about to dawn. The rain had finally stopped, and the morning chill was already trying to chase us off the street. There was not a living soul around. I was so sleepy, so I called a taxi, and we drove to my place. Without even undressing, we got to bed and fell asleep. I understand that after what I have experienced, it is hard to fall asleep, but it wasn't the first 24 hours without sleep, and the body itself passed out. It was the first night that was more or less peaceful. Only a few times I woke up without understanding the reason for it. I didn't have any nightmares. No one woke me up. I just opened my eyes and looked at the ceiling, then fell asleep again. And again, remembering what had happened. I slightly remember the next day. We woke up in the afternoon, or rather, I woke up and Rose, my friend. For a moment, it even seemed like a dream, as if we weren't sitting in the bathroom, and something strange and creepy wasn't trying to kill us, but the thought that it wasn't a dream was disturbing. Sitting in the kitchen with a cup of coffee, sipping one cigarette after another, we began to think about what to do next. I can't sell the apartment. There's still some unfinished business with the documents. That was my friend's answer to my proposal to get rid of the old place once and for all. Alex, can I stay with you for a while? Of course you can. Why didn't we do that before? I had to offer that to you, I said. Good thoughts come afterwards. That's for sure. Still, we have to go there one more time, since the apartment is still open, and there are some documents and stuff that I may need. My neighbors seem to be kind people, but you never know. Maybe someone will get in. I had no desire to go there, but for my friend's sake, I overcame my fear. In less than an hour, we were walking up the stairs. The house seemed to be usual. There were kids running around the yard, old ladies sitting on the porches, and at least there were people here, which made it less scary. In the apartment, we found a mess. All that we had cleaned before was again scattered everywhere. The door was wired. Apparently, the locksmith tried to lock it somehow, but some of the things we found later caused us very negative and contradictory emotions. Strange footprints were scattered all over the floor of the apartment. From the corridor to the balcony, there were traces of barefoot human feet covered with either mud or some other dark substance. But here's the trick. The footprints were quite unusual. First, all different in size. In many places, there was scratched laminate, and there was the impression that this was done by huge claws that have grown on these very feet. But even larger and deeper scratches were found on the door to the bathroom. What I saw made my heart pound more often, but even more horrible was the fact that the crucifixes that the priest had hung were completely burned out, and the icon that he had left us was covered with some dirt and looked more like a gruesome picture of some sick artist. It was a horrible sight, extremely horrible. Michael took everything he needed, passport, money, clothes for the first time, and we drove back home. It was only in the taxi that the bad news reached us. After another song, the news broke, and the first information the girl's pleasant voice told us was that last night, a priest had been found dead. According to preliminary data, a man of 45 years thrown himself out of the window of his house and died. I immediately surfed the internet and went to the news Instagram account of our town. I found the news with pictures there and recognized him. It was the same priest who had consecrated my friend's apartment last night. That's the priest who came yesterday. For some reason, I thought so right away. We shouldn't have called him. It made him mad, mumbled Mike, as if understanding a bit more than I did. Look, if you know something else, then tell me. I couldn't stand it any longer. I know as much as you do, bro. What should I tell you? You've already witnessed that shit. So it's not about the apartment. If he was killed by the one we think of, the priest couldn't have thrown himself out of the window. Suicide is a terrible sin, and he didn't look like a depressive weirdo. He seemed like a cheerful and kind man. I am 100% sure that he was murdered. I think I even know by whom. Mike answered with a sigh. I think we should find people who know something about the supernatural and solve problems like this. It seems to me that it's not over with us yet. And where should we find them? I don't know. Maybe on the internet? Surely there are special forums. I'm sure other people have faced similar problems. Well, let's give it a try. I don't see any other options so far. We scoured the vast expanses of the internet until the evening and read a huge number of people's stories. Obviously, half of them still seem more like fiction than like a real story. But if I had read our story, I would have also thought that it was someone's sick imagination. The sun was already setting below the horizon, and I heard the thunder. It's going to rain again. I'm sick of it. Mike was indignant, scrolling through another page of the forum. Hold on. What? Look. On the forum, I noticed a user who was answering every message and giving instructions on what to do when this or that paranormal event happened. We need to get in touch with her somehow. Sure, but how? Go to her account. Maybe there are some contacts there. Yeah, there was a cell phone number and an email address. Without wasting a second, I already dialed the number and listened to the long ringing tone. It took a long time to get through to her, and yet, after about an hour and a half, a pleasant woman's voice was heard on the phone. Hello, how can I help you? Good afternoon. I wrote you an email. My friend and I have a huge problem related to something otherworldly, I said in a shaky, uncertain voice. So, it was you who filled my mailbox. I've read your letter. Can you help us? I've seen you give advice to people, and most of them are grateful. Do you know something about this supernatural stuff? Oh, I wish I didn't, she said with a sigh. The only thing I'm sure of is that there must be a certain reason for what happened in your house. Judging by the events you describe, I can assume that it is a very strong evil. An evil that aims at taking as many lives as it can. Her words made me feel uncomfortable. And believe me, it won't stop at you. Today, the priest that we called in to consecrate the apartment threw himself out of the window. It was to be expected. He wouldn't have thrown himself out. Most likely, somebody made him do that. I've never seen it before. I've heard of it, but I've never had to deal with it. Alright, I'll try to help you. Give me your address. I'll be on my way. I gave her the address of Mike's apartment, but the woman replied that she would be there tomorrow evening because she had to get from the other town. There was hope in our hearts. We were even in a better mood, but soon there was no trace of it. Tonight, when I got up to go to the bathroom, I saw him in the mirror, but the worst part of it was that he wasn't alone. At first, I thought I was imagining things because the problem resided in my friend's apartment, but remembering the priest's untimely demise, I woke up to the realization that it wasn't about the apartment at all. They were standing there behind the mirror, as if behind the plain glass. The one in the photo was behind me, and next to him, there were some women with their necks crooked in different directions, their heads naturally resting on their shoulders. They were completely naked, though they didn't have the usual features of the human body. No genitals, no belly button, no breasts, just a whitish body standing in the dark. In just that split second, I counted about 5 such bodies. When I saw this gruesome picture, my legs buckled. I fell on my ass and screamed my head off. After waking up, Mike immediately ran out to me in the hallway, but there was no one in the mirror. What's the matter, bro? What's wrong? I just pointed a trembling finger at the mirror without dropping a word. Come on, get up. You are safe now. I saw them there. He's not alone. He's here. Do you hear me? I shouted at him. Let's go to the kitchen, and you'll tell me everything. I told Mike what had just happened over another cup of coffee. It was decided to leave my apartment. After all, neither he nor I knew what could happen next. But since the evil was already here, obviously, it was not for good. I felt blood coming out of my nose when we were about to leave, and it took about 30 minutes for it to stop. Once again, we sat outside until morning near the same downtown kebab stand. There we could at least hide from the annoying rain. Since there was nowhere to go, we decided to wait for Valentine outdoors. Luckily, she arrived a little earlier than we expected. We were already sitting on the bench in the yard of Mike's house when a woman of about 45, maybe 50 years of age, came up to us. Good afternoon. Are you Alexander and Michael? Yes, that's us, Mike shouted out. Then I'm at the right place. You called me for help. We are so glad that you have come. Well, tell me all the details of what's going on, and also I have to check the scene on my own. As we walked up the stairs, I told Valentine about the blood and who I had seen in the mirror. She gave me a disappointing answer. It was probably just a reflection, and in fact, they were standing right behind you. We went into the apartment and, stepping over the scattered broken furniture, walked into the room. You used to see them only in photos, didn't you? Yes, but after we consecrated the apartment, it became tangible or something. You angered that spirit. That's why it became so aggressive. They don't really like priests in the apartment. I see the crucifixes are all burnt out too. Yeah, that's the whole reason. But what's the reason it's here and haunting us? It's very simple. These creatures never come uninvited. We need to contact it and find out what it wants. The woman immediately took the Ouija board out of her bag, followed by some cameras and some strange gadgets. I will now place the cameras and dosimeters in every room. They help me determine the paranormal activity. It's better not to stay close to them if you hear a loud clicking. By the way, maybe that's why you got a nosebleed. The woman set up the equipment, and we just helped her and did everything she said. After half an hour, all the cameras were installed, and we were sitting in the room at the table, holding hands, with several candles burning in the pitch darkness. The seance had begun. Is anyone here but us? Give us a sign. Valentine's voice was the only sound we heard in the total darkness. Is there anyone here but us? The woman spoke again. The pointer moved towards the word. Yes. I opened my eyes and saw the light in the candle began to flicker, and suddenly it felt cold, as if someone had opened a window. Tell me who you are and what you want. Suddenly, the pointer began jumping from letter to letter, and the only word she could make out was kill. Valentine opened her eyes and stared at the board, trying to make out the next words. Suddenly, she looked at me and Mike and said, "Nobody will help you." That is what he said. In a moment, we heard a terrible clicking sound from the dosimeter. It was as if we were next to a power unit that had exploded in Chernobyl, and the table at which we were sitting in those seconds was tossed up. The candles went out, and the Ouija board itself flew into the corridor. Valentine began to panic. She jumped up from her chair and ran towards the cameras. As she held one up, she was horrified. Obviously, she had never seen anything like that before. We ran after her, and she showed us the pictures from the cameras, and there was also a video clip. What I saw made me jump back. There were these creatures standing all over the apartment, like statues, not moving. They looked like the ones I'd seen in the mirror at home, and the moment we sat at the table, they surrounded us, and that's what made the dosimeter click. Valentine was confused. She ran over to the other camera, lighting her way with the flashlight. I saw that her nose was bleeding too. "Valentine, are you okay?" But she wasn't paying attention. The woman grabbed the camera and started to look at the photos. Suddenly, she dropped the camera from her hand and looked at us with a dazed expression, then ordered us to hurry up and get the hell out of here. She left all her equipment behind and ran out of the apartment. We followed her, and at that moment, there was a heavy blow to the door from the inside that knocked it off its hinges. The structure fell to the floor, causing a loud bang, making neighbors peek out of several apartments and stare at us, running in a panic down the stairs. Staying outside, Valentine finally told us what was wrong. There was something very powerful in the apartment. It's not just a spirit, it's something demonic. That's why your crucifix is burned, and that's why the priest passed away. I'm afraid I'm powerless against it. But you didn't even try to do anything, Mike shouted at her while she wiped the blood from under her nose and said only one thing. I can't help you. I'm too weak. When I saw it, I didn't even try. Otherwise, it would have been even angrier, and then we wouldn't get out of that mess. What do we do now? I think I know someone who can help you. Maybe if we work together, we might be able to cope with that demon. Valentine took the cell phone out of her pocket and dialed the number. Hello, Gabriel? I need your help. What happened? We heard a gruff man's voice on the phone. It's the same one here. I couldn't do anything. Demons crap. That will cost them. People are desperate, willing to do anything to get rid of them. Alright, I'm gonna finish my beer and get ready. Text me the exact address.